Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Perth East Council this 16th day of December. I'd like to call our meeting to order. My apologies for my throat. I have laryngitis, so it could be an interesting evening. I may not be able to talk before we're done, but anyway, we'll see what happens. Anyway, if everyone could please bow their head for a moment of reflection. Thank you. And before we get to confirmation of the agenda, tonight we'd like to welcome Stephanie Ribel. She has accepted the role as our new Deputy Clerk, Records Management Coordinator with the Clerks Department. Stephanie started on Monday, December the 8th, 2025. She was previously in the department or Deputy Clerk / Planning Coordinator role for the Township of North Huron. Stephanie resides near Cranbrook. Some interesting facts and fun facts is she's a local fine artist specializing in animal portraits, wildlife, and she is in Trilingual? Wow. Welcome to Perth East. Okay, now we'll move to confirmation of the agenda. That the agenda as prepared for December 16, 2025, meeting of Council of the Township of Perth East be approved as received. Moved by Jeremy, second by Hugh. All in favor? Carried. If you have pecuniary interest, Council, you can disclose that now as the meeting goes along. Under consent agenda, we have 22 items. Is there anything anyone has questions on or they'd like pulled? Jerry?
Thanks through the mayor. 5.1.10. Just a quick discussion.
Okay. Anything else? You wanted to just ask your question or you want it separate?
No, I can ask.
Sure.
So with that ruling, if staff could give us an update on what perhaps we're going to get from that ruling from CN as far as the drainage.
Yeah, through the mayor, I think it's a positive step as it relates to the referee's decision. But I've also heard that subsequently CP is already moving forward to appeal the decision, which I guess is probably not too surprising. At this point, yeah, we're waiting to see if there is an actual appeal. I think with the referee's decision, we'll remind CN in our case that there are still some outstanding drainage assessments and maintenance costs that they owe Perth East, but I don't envision that the check is still fine.
Okay. All right, then we have a motion that items 5.1.1 to 5.1.22 as set out on the consent agenda for December 16, 2025 regular meeting of council be received for information, and at the minutes of Perth East Public Library Board December 9, 2025, and then the Perth County OPP Detachment Board minutes October 14, 2025 be received for information, and at the minutes of December 2nd, 2025 regular council meeting be adopted. Moved by Bob, second by Jerry. All in favor? Carried. Okay, under presentations, we have no public presentations. We have no other presentations. We have no delegations. We do have one public meeting. So I declare this public meeting to be open. This public meeting is being held to consider proposed zoning bylaw amendment affecting property currently owned by Marcia Eberhardt, Concession 4, Lot 27, 5063, line 39. This meeting is an opportunity for the township to advise the public of the purpose and intent of the amendment and receive their input prior to considering adoption of an implementing bylaw. If a bylaw is adopted to implement the zoning amendment, a notice of passing will be forwarded by prepaid first-class mail to various agencies of interest and others who requested notice. An appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal objecting to the adoption of the bylaw may be e-filed via the OLT e-file service no later than the date stated on the notice. Any persons attending this meeting who wishes to receive written notice of a bylaw passed to implement the amendment is asked to give their name and mailing address to the clerk following this meeting. No written notice except as previously noted will be given unless requested in writing following the meeting. All persons attending this meeting will be given an opportunity to be heard or make a presentation. I will now call on our planner, Jeff Bannon, to present the planning report and recommendations. Welcome, Jeff.
Zone change application Z7 2025 was submitted by Thames Talbot Land Trust on behalf of Marcia Eberhardt for the property at 5063 line 39. Proposed amendment to the Perth East zoning bylaw is required to satisfy a condition of the consent file B39-25, which received conditional approval on December 4th to sever a dwelling that is surplus to a farm operation. The zoning bylaw amendment applies to both the severed farm and the retained lands, which are residential. The subject lands are designated agricultural and natural heritage features overlay in an official plan. And that official plan outlines the requirements for surplus farm dwelling severances in the county. Subject lands are currently zoned agricultural. The subject application proposes to rezone both the severed and retained lands to satisfy that the consent condition. The application satisfies the surplus farm dwelling severance policies in the official plan, which require that the retained lands be rezoned to recognize a dwelling that is not accessory to agriculture, while the retained lands is rezoned to prohibit a new residential dwelling on the remnant farm property. Measures are in place to ensure that the farmland is protected for the long-term agricultural use. No written comments or concerns have been received from the public or agencies. The land zone natural resources, environment zone 2 and RE2 zone will not be negatively impacted by the surplus farm dwelling severance. They're located at the rear of the property. The attached Schedule A and report photo, which were included as part of the report, they have both been corrected and revised today to reflect changes to the surplus farm dwelling severance lot line, which were approved at previous council meeting as part of consent application B39-25. The updated schedule is intended to form part of the zoning bylaw. The retained and severed lots both conform to policies and provisions in the Perth East zoning bylaw related to lot coverage and frontage, and planning staff have identified no concerns with the amendment. In light of that, in light of the review, it's the opinion of staff that the zoning bylaw amendment is consistent with the provincial planning statement and conforms to the official plan. I'm available to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone present who wishes to make a presentation or speak in opposition of the application? Speaking against? Seeing no one. Is there anyone present who wishes to make a presentation or speak in support of the application other than the applicant or the applicant's agent? Seeing no one. Does the applicant or the applicant's agent wish to make a presentation or speak with respect to the application? No? Okay. We also have virtually with us Lily. Lily, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. If you had any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from members of council? Seeing none, council will consider a resolution regarding the plan and report recommendation following the conclusion of the public meeting. Bylaw 207-2025 to implement the approval of the zoning application will be considered later within the council agenda. Public meeting is now concluded, and we will continue with regular meeting of council. So we do have a motion, and the motion is that the Township of Perth East Council receive the report dated December 16, 2025, entitled Zoning Bylaw Amendment ZN 7-2025, submitted on behalf of Marcia Eberhardt, affecting the lands described as Lot 27, Concession 4, Ellis Ward, Township of Perth East, municipally known as 5063, line 39 for information, and that council held a statutory public meeting pursuant to Section 34 of the Planning Act with respect to zoning bylaw amendment ZN 7-2025, and that council approved zoning bylaw amendment ZN 7-2025 as recommended by staff, submitted on behalf of Marcia Eberhardt, affecting the lands described as Lot 27, Concession 4, Ellis Ward, Township of Perth East, municipally known as 5063 line 39. I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Hugh, second by Jeremy. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, now we'll move to public hearings, and we have 2 public hearings. So council will now temporarily adjourn to sit as a committee of adjustment pursuant to section 45 of the Planning Act. I now declare this public hearing open. This public hearing is being held to consider an application affecting property currently owned by Dan and Sheila Christian and described as concession 5, West Part Lot 23, Northeast Hope Ward, 2296, line 40. The purpose of this hearing is to give the committee and the public an opportunity to hear all interested persons with respect to the proposed application and receive their input, and for the committee to make a decision on the application. All persons attending this hearing will be given an opportunity to be heard or make a presentation. Committee members may ask questions for the purposes of clarifying the application, but are asked to withhold comments on this application until all present have been given an opportunity to be heard. Any person who wishes to receive written notice of the decision made by the Committee of Adjustment is asked to email their name and mailing address to the Secretary Treasurer at this time. An appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal objecting to the decision made at this hearing may be emailed via the OLT e-file service by the applicant, the municipality, the minister, or prescribed utility providers with the Secretary Treasurer no later than the date stated on the notice. No written notice, except as previously noted, will be given unless requested at this time. I will now call on our planner, Jeff, to present the planning report and recommendations. So, Jeff, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So minor variance application MV 16 2025 was submitted by Dan and Sheila Christian for the property at 2296 line 40. Subject lands are approximately 20.4 hectares in area. They include a woodlot with the vacant lands that are located within the agricultural zoned area. The applicant is intending on constructing a single detached dwelling and an accessory shed for agricultural storage. The requested relief is required to reduce the minimum distance separation MDS 1 requirement from the neighboring manure storage and livestock barn located at 2340 line 40. Subject lands are designated as agriculture and natural heritage features overlay in the official plan. The agricultural designation intends to preserve and strengthen the continued viability of the agricultural community. And the natural heritage system includes woodlands, wetlands, and watercourses that are essential to the Perth County landscaping community. That resource designation supports the protection of natural features in areas for the long term, recognizing the importance of provincially, regionally, and locally significant natural features and landforms. So minor variance is required in order to allow the construction of a new residential dwelling. The applicant is intending to use the subject lands with the farm use and is proposing to build a dwelling within the lands that are zoned as agricultural. In order to minimize land use incompatibilities in the agricultural designation, those MDS separation requirements apply to any new development. Purpose of the requirements is to minimize nuisance complaints associated with the livestock and digesters due to the odor and thereby reduce potential land use conflicts. Section 3.7.5 lands adjacent to the natural heritage features of the County of Perth official plan recognizes that provincial policies require that lands that are adjacent to those significant natural features have to be protected from incompatible development. In alignment with the provincial recommendations on those adjacent lands widths, there are study requirements for an environmental impact study that needs to be completed for anything that's within 120 meters of significant wetlands or woodlands or wildlife habitat. So anything that's kind of next to that natural resource area, anything that's within 120 meters, if it's determined to be development, it needs to go through an EIS. The minor variance will allow for a residential dwelling to be constructed in an area that's outside of the natural heritage features overlay, but is still located within that adjacent lands of the natural heritage features. So an environmental impact study is required to be completed and peer reviewed before the minor variance application should be considered by the Committee of Adjustment. Without the approval of an EIS, the minor variance would not be able to meet the intent of the official plan, which is one of the 4 tests of the minor variance. Property is zoned agricultural A and natural resources environment NRE2 zone. And within the section 5.29, the zoning bylaw states that on an agricultural property, a dwelling cannot be established except on a lot area 15 hectares or larger. The subject lands are 20.4 hectares in area, which exceeds the minimum requirement. And the residential dwelling is proposed to be constructed on an undersized agricultural property. Completion of the environmental impact study and the peer review of that EIS is required in order to determine the impacts on the natural heritage features. Planning staff are recommending that the minor variance is deferred until that study has been completed and reviewed. I'm available to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Is there anyone present who wishes to make a presentation or speak in opposition of the application? Speaking in opposition? No. Okay. Is there anyone present who wishes to make a presentation or speak in support of the application other than the applicant or the applicant's agent? No. Okay. Does the applicant or the applicant's agent wish to address or wish to make a presentation or speak with respect to the application?
Yes.
Now your turn. So if you'd like to come to the mic, tell us who you are, where you live.
Okay, I'm Dan Christian. I'm here with my wife Sheila. This is my first council meeting, so forgive me if I don't know all the protocol. We live on line 107, north of Shakespeare. We do have a property, which is the one we're talking about here right now, which we'd like to build a house on. I did get a little bit more information just before the meeting from Jeff, but I did do a little bit of research, which I'd like to speak on. It's my understanding there's no legal policy or requirement under the Ontario Planning Act or Perth County's official plan that mandates an environmental impact study for a minor variance related to livestock odor. EIS requirements are triggered by proximity to natural heritage features like wetlands or wildlife habitat, not by odor or land use compatibility concerns. The reason we need the variance is due to a minimum distance separation guideline, which are about managing odor conflicts, not environmental harm. Odor is a land use compatibility issue, not an ecological one. And EIS would not resolve the odor concerns. We've been told that if it were not for the minor variance requirement for the farming operation standoff, EIS wouldn't be triggered. It's just because of the minor variance related to the odor. To us, it doesn't make sense to require a costly and time-consuming environmental study for a project that would otherwise be permitted without one. Perth County official plan only requires an EIS when development affects natural heritage features. Our property does not. Ontario Land Tribunal decisions confirm that conditions on minor variances must be reasonably related to the variance. An EIS about wildlife and habitat is not reasonably related to the variance about odor setback. I mean, we're willing to acknowledge the proximity of the farm and accept the condition that we will not file nuisance complaints about normal farm practices. This addresses the intent of the MDS policy, preventing future conflict without requiring an irrelevant environmental study. Deferring this decision for an EIS would cause unnecessary delay and expense. We respectfully ask council to approve the variance tonight without requiring an EIS. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Jeff, can you respond to some of his comments?
Through the mayor. So some of those comments are in relation to the MDS requirements. The MDS itself wouldn't trigger an EIS study to complete. The EIS study is required because there's development on the lands. and those lands are within 120 meters of those natural heritage areas. So in order for a planning application to move forward, you have to complete the environmental impact study as part of the requirements in the official plan. So we wouldn't be able to say that a development met the intent of the official plan, intent of the zoning bylaw that was minor in nature and appropriate development if we can't determine if it meets the intent of the official plan, because the official plan tells us that anything within 120 meters needs to be evaluated if we're developing the land. So in this case, we consider that it's being developed because the applicant is putting structures on the property and they're filling in a man-made pond. We don't know how that's going to impact those natural areas and that naturally protected area. So that's the requirement for, in order to hear the application, or in order to make a determination that it meets the code text, the EIS is required, and that's why we're recommending the application. So that work's been done.
I ask a question.
Sure.
So did I misunderstand that it's not actually because of the variance request?
Through the mayor, it's because of the variance request. The variance request is a planning application. So if you submit a planning application that needs relief from the planning act and from the zoning bylaw requirements, that's a planning application. And then the submission of that requires that you meet the intent of the official plan. So because you need a minor variance application, then you need to go through the EIS to make sure that that study is
Okay.
done.
I just thought for a minute I misunderstood it, but I guess I did not, right?
Okay, you're good?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, well, are any questions from the committee members? Hugh?
Then if he wouldn't have needed the variance, he wouldn't have to do the environment.
Through the mayor, that's correct. So if you're able to meet the zoning bylaw requirements, then you can make application for a building permit. So unless they're requiring the EIS through the building permit application, which my understanding is that it's not required if it's an agricultural zone property, then you wouldn't need to go through the process. But because you need a planning application, and then you have to meet the requirements in the official plan, and that's a requirement in the official plan.
Okay, anyone else? Jerry?
Thanks for the mayor. So is there any room to move your proposed dwelling that would need the minor variance? And you probably looked at that. So
It's pretty surrounded by the NRE zoning. That was my first reaction too. The most accurate answer, I'm not sure. It seems unlikely. The boundaries are not entirely clear either. I mean, I think they're based on aerial views. Is that right, Jeff?
Through the mayor. So those original boundaries would have been based on zoning bylaw, the previous approved zoning bylaw for the NRE2 zone. Our boundaries were also updated through the official plan update. And they would have been based on a variety of different mechanisms in place. Part of those would have been air photos. Part of them would have been calculated through site visits out in person. I just don't know the history of this property to see exactly how those boundaries were determined. When we started doing a review of the property, from the boundary of the protected area, it is definitely less than 90 meters. So that's when we determined that because it's not even close to being close to that 120 meters, it wasn't a matter of being able to do additional staking on the ground to figure out exactly where those boundaries are located. We know that it's within that 120 meters based on the information that we have.
Okay, other questions? Bob?
A question for Jeff. So recommendation is to defer, but does this suffice for the neighbor's minor variance concern? I would have expected you may have had some comments to make some comments.
Okay, sorry, I think I missed part of the question. So
So-
you're asking if it,
So tonight, we're talking about the minor variance. Realize there's some extra work to do. We will do at some point, but the minor variance meeting has happened. And you've had no concerns from the public, I guess. There's no one here to state their concerns. So the next time we would see this, the minor variance issue is included.
through the mayor. So the intention is if it was deferred tonight, you would hear this matter back in front of council again. So the minor mayors would come back to council. If you made a decision on the application tonight, then it wouldn't be coming back to council. Unless it was unless it was appealed. Or about an appeal. I understand that the public hasn't raised any concerns. Planning staff are raising concerns that this application doesn't meet the four tests of the plan.
Okay, anyone else? Andrew?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just wondering, looking at the aerial, are these natural or man-made ponds there? Okay, thank you.
I would add that the Grand River Authority has reported back to our application with no concerns.
So do you know if they're man-made or they're
Oh, no, they're man-made.
they're man-made?
I just
think
mean
that's
in
what
general.
Andrew's question was. Sorry if I missed that.
Yeah, no,
I'm having
no,
hearing problems too, and my throat.
no, that's okay.
Not a great
I have
night.
my head turned away from the mic, I think.
Okay, Jeremy, you have a question?
I guess I'm a little bit surprised when the application made it to us. This wouldn't be completed. Like this would not be considered a completed application then. Is that right?
Through the mayor, if we realized that they were within 120 meters when the application was submitted, we wouldn't have brought it forward to council. We would have stopped the process at that point, determined that it wasn't a complete application, and advised the applicant that they needed to complete the EIS. So the timelines to turn around a minor variance application are quite quick. So we need to get things back in front of council within 30 days of getting the application. We didn't complete the review in enough time to make sure we can meet the deadline requirements. We didn't know that it was within that 120 meters until we'd already circulated for the public meeting, which meant that we had to hold the public meeting and we got a report forward recommending deferral because we didn't catch the 120 meter stipulation that it was within that area until after we completed the circulation. So if that answers your question, but ideally
Yeah.
it would have been better if we caught this before we deemed it as being complete and circulated the application.
Okay, any other questions? I guess I have one. I don't even know if I should bring this up, but if council approves it, this will go to Wes. Can you give a building permit or not?
Yeah, I guess we can. Applicable law, which would be the minor variance. The answer is yes.
Amanda?
And apologies, I might not be getting this. So what new information are we gonna get between now and the deferral? Like what's gonna change?
Through the mayor, what might change is if there's any impacts on the natural heritage area and what types of measures need to be put in place to minimize or eliminate those impacts on that heritage area. So if it was determined through the EIS that the construction of this building destroys a good portion of that woodlot, and I know that I'm being overcautious. If it was determined that there was a significant impact on that woodlot, then we'd want to make sure that that woodlot was those impacts were minimized or that the development wouldn't proceed. So building a house there might have significant impacts on that area. It might result in the destruction of trees. It might result in the destruction of wildlife habitat. We don't know that unless the study's done, and that's why we have it in our official plan that if you're developing this close to a natural heritage area, that you should be completing that environmental impact study.
Okay, I think I'm just struggling because we need to, anyways, I'm struggling with this a little bit because this is their property. They want to build a house. We need to try to be supportive of people building homes. And we're worried about a couple trees that may or may not be damaged. Because but the local conservation authority said they have no concerns. So why are we delaying it?
Through the mayor. So the local conservation authority wouldn't provide comments on matters related to the environmental impact study. That is now outside of their realm of what they examine when you circulate these applications. So what happens is that we have a policy put into the official plan that stipulates that you should be, or you need to, you are required to do an environmental impact study to develop within 120 meters of these areas.
And how much is one of these studies?
Yep. Could
Yeah,
I just finish my
sure. But
statement
just,
and then I'll answer that?
yeah,
next?
answer part 2.
Perfect. Okay, great. Through the mayor. Yeah, so we're required to complete the environmental impact study, and I've kind of lost my train of thought, but that's required to make sure that there's not impacts on those surrounding areas. The cost of the study needs to be peer reviewed because we don't have the expertise, because the expertise used to be taken care of through the conservation. We do not have planning staff that are ecologists that can determine what the impacts are and whether or not the environmental impact statement and study accurately reflects what's being done out there on the property and what we've seen on the property. So that's why it gets peer reviewed by a third party. So they have to complete the study and then it gets peer reviewed afterwards. I can't tell you what the costs of those studies are with definitively. I can tell you that we have done peer reviews of the studies in the past, and it is going to likely be a couple of $1,000 from that's judging from the last 2 that we've received to complete the peer review. I don't know what the costs are to the client to create that study. I have been told that it's less than what the cost of the peer review is. I just don't know what that value is because we don't see those bills. They're billed directly to the applicant and the property owner.
Okay, any more questions? If not, the committee will, I'm sorry, Jeremy.
So when the application is submitted, who answers that question about how far it is to the Natural Heritage area? Is that county planning staff or is that the applicant? Like this, I can't recall seeing something like this come to us before, where an incomplete application is how I'm viewing it, at least, has been kind of slipped through the cracks. So who's on the hook to make note of that when the application comes? Like, are we out there, we're just using the GIS to calculate the distances, is what we're doing for those barns? Or did the applicant not calculate that correctly? And what specifically, is it those ponds, or is it the woodlot, or is it both that's causing that?
Through the mayor, so it is anything that's within that natural heritage system, which includes the woodlot. So you're supposed to be 120 meters away from the woodlot. The review of the application when it comes through goes to planning. So I would review that application and I would need to assess whether it's within that 120 meters. I did the review afterwards and realized that it was too close to that 120 meters. Determined that it looked like it was within 90 meters of the property, or 90 meters of that woodlot, probably less than 90 meters, and determined that, yeah, it doesn't meet that requirement of 120 meters. So yes, ideally, I should have caught that when the application first came in. It's up to the applicant to provide us with the distance separations from what's being developed to those wooded areas. So we used what was provided, and I've looked at the GIS. And after reviewing those 2 documents, determined as I was preparing for the report and after the circulation was completed, determined that yes, an EIS should have been required prior to the submission of the variance, or as part of the submission of the variance. Through the mayor, so if an application is deemed as being complete, we would deal with the application. So through the review of the application, we can't support the application because it doesn't meet the 4 tests of the Planning Act. So when you're looking at a minor variance application, if it fails on any of those 4 tests, the application should be refused. So if we brought forward a report tonight and didn't bring forward a deferral report, we'd be recommending refusal of the application, saying that it's within that 120 meters. We don't have the information in front of us that allows us to determine that the intent of the official plan is being met.
Okay, anyone else? So the committee will now consider a motion regarding the application. Do you have a motion? Consider my voice. I want to know if I should read it or if somebody else wants to do something else. No? Okay, then I'll read it. The Township of Perth East Committee of Adjustment defer application file MV 16-2025 submitted by Dan and Sheila Christian for lands described as East Part Lot 23, Concession 5, Northeast Hope Ward, Township of Perth East, municipally known as 42296, line 40, as it relates to, municipally known as 2296, line 40, as it relates to relief from section 6.4 to reduce the minimum distance separation 1 requirement for manure storage from 584 meters to 507 meters, and for a livestock barn from 537 meters to 495 meters to facilitate the development of a single detached dwelling until an environmental impact study has been prepared and peer reviewed for the subject lands. Do I have a mover and a seconder? You're going to move
I
it?
want to make a motion. I'm sorry. I made you do all of that. I'm going to shoot from the hip a little bit here and we'll see where it happens. I
Just
would like,
hang on.
yeah.
So because I read it, we don't have to go any further, right? I just want to know procedure. Okay, okay, go ahead. Sorry.
right. Might cause some issues here, but I would like to make a motion to approve the application as is without requiring the environmental study to happen. I think we've heard enough here tonight. That's what I am moving.
Okay, so we have a motion that Township of Perth East Committee of Adjustment approve application file MV 16-2025 submitted by Dan and Sheila Christian for lands described as East Part Lot 23, Concession 5, Northeast Hope Ward, Township of Perth East, municipally known as 2296, line 40, as it relates to relief from section 6.4 to reduce the minimum distance separation 1 requirement for manure storage from 584 meters to 507 meters, and for a livestock barn from 537 meters to 495 meters to facilitate the development of a single detached dwelling, and that the owners obtain the necessary building permit within 2 years of the approval of the minor variance. Pardon?
So just as, yeah, I think, Jeff, just for clarification for the committee, as it relates to proceeding with the approval without it meeting the 4 tests, what are the implications as it relates to, or are there implications that the committee needs to be aware of before this motion?
Through the mayor. So what you would be doing is making a recommendation to approve a planning application that does not meet the 4 tests of the zoning bylaw. So that's what we're analyzing this under, and I understand concerns. It's still appealable, so the county staff has the right to appeal the decision that's being made. So there is that potential. I'm not saying that it would be appealed or it wouldn't be appealed, but the appeal process still is open to public bodies. So.
Okay, so do we have a mover and a seconder for that? Okay, moved by Amanda. We have a seconder. Okay, who's going to second it? Is there any more questions or comments? Jerry?
Yes, I really want to support this. However, this would open up everybody to come to us and do minor variance without the 120 within 4 tests. That's my fear. I don't want that to happen. I really want to support this. I don't know Mr. Christian, but I would assume that if planning staff would have caught this, if this was me, I would have went and got the study done. I would have did it. Between 2 and 5,000, whatever it is, going to a house and get it done. So I have a hard time going forward with it as is. Should be sent back and have that study done. In my mind, we're opening up to doesn't of those tests.
Anyone else? Bob?
Yeah, this application is incomplete. I'm not so concerned about the environmental impact study because I know you have other applications online, 43 East around Marie that's within on the EIS, I believe. And I know there have been other EIS it's completed in the past in order for them to proceed. So that to me is not the issue. It's the minor variance that we're not discussing at all tonight. And I am surprised that you haven't heard some feedback or someone intends to comment, at least ask questions or comment. So if this was to come back again, I think those minor variance concerns might be brought. Maybe not, but I am surprised no one is here. And I would like to see the full report that speaks to how minor those variances are.
Anyone else? I have one question for Jeff. The environmental impact study, is it a shall happen or may happen?
It's required. It's a requirement in the official plan. It's a shall. Yeah. It's not an option. If it was an option, we might have different reporting for you, but it's not an option in the official plan, and that's why we can't support the application because it doesn't meet the intent of the official plan. From a planning perspective, that's why we can't support it. We had to move forward with that deferral. So that EIS is completed with recommendation of deferral.
I have one more question for the clerk. So if this gets turned down, can we make another motion? If it's not supported to allow it, then another motion comes forward? Yeah. So we're all clear on that. Okay? Any more questions? This is a tough one. All those in favor of the motion? Opposed? Defeated, unfortunately. Okay. So we will go back to the original motion to defer it. Is that what council wishes to do?
I'll make that motion to defer.
Okay, moved by Bob, second by Hugh. Any more questions or comments? Bob?
I expect when this comes back as completed that it probably will pass. But I think that there needs to be fulsome discussion about the minor variance. And we just not talk about that all because it's not complete. So it'll come back. Expect that there might be some neighbors that have comments, but that's up to them.
Jeremy? Jeff?
We wouldn't, through the mayor, we wouldn't be required to recirculate the application, but it's still a public meeting. I understand that.
Yeah, but normally council doesn't really have much discussion on an environmental impact study. You just, as Jeff stated, it's done, it's reviewed, and it makes comment. It may say you put the well here and the septic there, and you can't dig over here, but we don't usually see any of the information. It's for our discussion.
I will allow you to speak. I'm not supposed to, but I will.
Okay, sorry, I don't know the protocol. From our point of view then, and speaking a little bit to Bob on his comments. So we will be going to do this study. I think it's, I don't know the numbers, but I would be surprised if it's as inexpensive as Jeff suggests. However, now considering what Bob's saying, then we'll jump through those hoops and come back and have to do the whole thing over again if we have other issues. I mean, that would be disappointing.
Yeah, I just want to speak to the councilor's comments. Yeah, this is not an approval of the minor variance. The deferral is that this will come back as opposed to the package for council to consider, or
Right.
for the committee to consider. So yeah, you're 100% right, Mr. Christian, that this does not preclude what the decision the committee will make when it comes back.
Understood.
Yeah, I think part of the comments that are being made, the information as it relates to the minor variance are here in front of the committee. It's not a surprise. This is what's being proposed. I think I won't speak for the council, but I think the whole implications as it relates to MDS is something that this council has and does take quite seriously. This is an agriculture community, so it gets a lot of consideration. So I don't want you to leave the room thinking EIS leaves. The committee is going to be
Mhm.
Andrew?
It's not, I'm not sure for planning. The conservation authority carries a lot of weight. They can authorize building permits to be issued, a whole bunch of other things. As I understand the process, it's a significant input. No, if I didn't see the document, we didn't see the document, is it possible to have that as an add-on to the next report so we can see what the conservation said and what was asked of them, just to be a little clearer next time?
Through the mayor. So yes, we circulated the Conservation Authority and we can definitely make sure that we get comments back from them and provide that to council at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else? If not, then it's been moved and seconded, correct, to Bob and Hugh to defer. Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, now we're moving on to our second application for minor variance, and this public hearing is being held to consider an application affecting property currently owned by the City of Stratford Public Housing and described as Plan 363, Lot 137, Milverton Ward, 9 Fulton Street, Milverton. The preamble is all the same. I'm going to jump right down to Jeff.
Thank you. So minor variance application MV 17/2025 was submitted by Perth and Stratford Housing Corporation for the property at 9 Fulton Street. Subject lands are approximately 2,000 square meters in area and they're currently vacant. The previous 11-unit apartment dwelling was in a state of disrepair, was recently demolished. The proposed apartment dwelling will replace the previous apartments on a larger footprint, with the new building being approximately 400 square meters larger in gross floor area. Applicant is intending to construct a 2-story apartment dwelling with 14 units. The requested relief is required to reduce the minimum floor area for an apartment dwelling unit, and reduce the minimum planting strip along the rear and west property lines. Subject lands are designated as neighborhood in the Perth County official plan and zoned residential zone 3, which is an R3 zone in the zoning bylaw. Applicant is requesting a minor variance to reduce the minimum floor area for an apartment dwelling unit, to reduce the minimum width of a planting strip, and to reduce the minimum front and side yard setbacks with the original application. The government passed Bill 17, which was passed by the provincial government to allow as a right setback variances for parcels of urban residential land. That regulation allows for minimum setback distance deemed to be 90% of the setback distance for what a building or structure must be set back from the boundaries that are surrounding the property. Minimum front yard and side yard setbacks meet the minimum 90% setback distance, and as a result, the minor variance would not be required for those setbacks. to allow for the front yard and side yard setbacks, and they weren't included in the minor variance report tonight or with the circulation. Just wanted to be upfront that if you're looking at the drawing and they're located closer to the boundaries, what you know to be the zoning bylaw setbacks, that's why it's still allowed, because they only have to meet a 90% rule according to Bill 17, which has recently been passed by the government. So the proposed reduction in the minimum size of apartment dwelling units results in a living space that meet the minimum requirements in the building code. Applicant stated that half of the units will be accessible and one-bedroom units will be typically inhibited by the single person. The two-bedroom units in the building meet the minimum floor area requirement of the zoning bylaw. The planting strip width of 1.5 meters is intended to provide enough area to allow for a planting strip that achieves a minimum height of 1.75 meters at maturity. The planting strip is intended to buffer that development, which is a multi-residential development, from the existing residential areas, which are found in the R1 and R2 zones. The applicant is proposing a wood fence with a minimum height of 1.8 meters, which is higher than the minimum height of maturity for a planting strip. And subject to site plan approval, a solid wood fence or wall is appropriate to provide screening as set out in that approval. The proposed fence would meet the minimum height requirement and would be able to be constructed and maintained within the proposed planting strip that is being considered tonight. I'm sorry, I'm just missing the third page in my notes. Proposed reduction to the minimum size requirement will exceed the minimum dwelling unit size of 17.5 meters in the Ontario Building Code. The reduction in the required dwelling unit size facilitates the replacement of the previous apartments where all of those dwelling units were smaller than the 55 square meter requirement. The reduction in the planting strip width still allows for the construction of a solid wood fence, which provides for that appropriate buffer from the existing residential areas to the proposed development. Services in the area can accommodate the proposed development, and the applicant will provide that 1.5 meter wood fence. That will buffer the land use from the residential dwellings. Condition has been included in the recommendation to ensure that the fence is constructed to meet the planting strip requirements of the zoning bylaw. Applicant will be required to obtain site plan approval for the apartment building. As a result, we feel that the minor variance meets the intent and purpose of the official plan. So public notice in accordance with the Planning Act. At the time of writing the report, one response was received from the public. That respondent provided an opinion that the application didn't meet the 4 tests of the Planning Act. They expressed concerns with the dwelling size reduction, representing a significant reduction and not fitting in with the neighborhood, and that the reduced privacy screening would have an adverse impact on the neighboring properties. We have received 3 other responses since the completion of the Planning Act. Other concerns that were raised, one being that there's a tree located on the corner of the property that is leaning. That respondent also had concerns with safety and in relation to privacy and with the current tenants of the previous building. Another respondent again mentioned the 4 tests of the Planning Act and didn't feel that they were being upheld. And one respondent had concerns with the size of the units and with the tenancy of the existing previous tenants. The last respondent discussed the planting strip, safety and privacy that are all being compromised as a result of the proposed minor variance. Planning staff opinion is that the minor variance conforms with the official plan policies, maintains the general intent of the official plan and the zoning bylaw. We do consider that the minor variances are minor and desirable use for the land, and we are recommending approval of the minor variance tonight. And available to answer any questions.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Is there anyone present who wishes to make a presentation or speak in opposition of the application? Okay, could you please come to the table and give your name and your address?
Excuse me, nervous. Kevin Chapman, I live at 9 Fulton Street, or 9A Fulton Street, right beside the place of question. And we're having a lot of issues with the tenants used to be there. They always doing drugs. My grandkids were afraid to go outside because of it. are always mountains. I've been threatened with nice people going on that kind of place. It's just, I gotta. It's all I'm just nervous. You got a copy of the slide, right? Or was it actually got a copy of the slide? I'm writing to express my serious concerns regarding the proposed construction of a new apartment building on the property adjacent to our home. Where we reside at 9/8 Fulton Street, Milburn. In the past, our households have experienced harassment and safety issues originating from residents residing in the apartment building. These incidents have significantly impacted our peace of mind, often leaving us feeling uncomfortable and unsafe in our own home. We're concerned that our proposed development will introduce some similar changes to our neighborhood. While we recognize the need to accommodate growth and provide housing, we believe the well-being and voices of current residents must be carefully considered. Our primary concern is the safety of our family, preservations of a sense of security we have worked to achieve. In addition, there is an ongoing issue of a pine tree planted on the property located at the corner of the property line. It is tree hangs over our property and drips sap onto our vehicles parked in the designated parking spot, causing damage to our cars. We have brought this issue to the attention of the city of Stratford, the owners of the building. Initially, we suggested removal of the tree to prevent any further damage to our vehicles on our property. Tavern House had informed us that they could not address it because of the property is called Twin Pines, which it wasn't. It had a plaque on it. It's called Pinehurst. And why they lied to us like that. It was confusing since this is clearly one of the two pine trees. It's only one pine tree. Eventually, they agreed to trim the overhanging branches. This did not resolve the sap issue. As a result, we have to relocate our vehicles to avoid sap, which is inconvenience. So I had to pay for additional anyway because of that. I respect requests that the council seriously consider implementing repulsive measures to ensure that future tenants of our neighbors can exist peacefully and without fear. We urge you to establish safeguards to prevent harassment and to promptly address the community safety concerns in the issue. Thank you for your attention in this matter. I have pictures of that tree. I think you said you were going to come by and look at that tree when I talked on the phone there last week. I don't know if you ever did or not, but I have pictures of it. You'd like to see it, how badly it's leaning. Like it's going to come down right on top of our cars or my grandkids.
Okay. Jeff, you want to say something?
Sure, I can respond. Thank you through the mayor. Yes, so I have been out on site. I have looked at the tree. I've seen the pictures of the tree. There is a lean to the tree. I'm not an arborist. I can't tell you how long it's going to take before that tree might topple over or what the age of the tree is. What I have told the respondent and what I have done is I have reached out to their consultant, the applicant, to discuss the matter with them. So what I've advised is that we cannot control landscaping matters through site plan control. This property will have to go through site plan, but we can't control whether or not trees remain on the property. They can show them on the site plan agreement. We can ask them to put those trees in or to remove trees. But if they came back to the township at a later date and asked to remove trees, legally, you're not able to prevent the changes to the plan from occurring, and those trees could be removed or additional trees could be put in. So we can't regulate that. I did speak with the applicant about it, and they haven't determined whether or not that tree would be removed at the point of when I had that conversation. They might have more to say tonight at the meeting if you wanted to raise that question with them. But they do show trees along the road frontage. I just don't know if the trees that are being shown on the concept plan, whether or not the tree that's shown there actually represents an existing tree that's going to remain, or if the existing tree is to be removed and it represents a new tree that might be going in its place. Speaking with the respondent, they did mention that they would be happy with a different type of tree that didn't have the same qualities where they're having sap that's coming off of the tree landing on their property. So it might be suitable to put some other type of tree or landscaping in place. But again, we don't regulate that through, we're not able to regulate that through the site plan agreement anymore.
Okay, thank you. You have
Just
anything
wondering.
else, Mr. Champion?
Yeah, I was wondering if I could respond about that tree. It's not, I know it's not their concern, but it is a safety issue. It's gonna come down. I have a picture of a level against it here and you can see just that little bit. It's at least a foot from the 4-foot level. It's a 4-foot mean like that. So that tree is coming down.
Right,
It's a
Yeah,
safety issue.
just to speak for the site plan process, Jeff's comments are 100% bang on. Lost a lot of the authority it required through site plan anymore, but I would say our conversations with the applicant have been quite positive in terms of them recognizing this site is very specific and needs to give full consideration to the implications of the neighbors, so I don't think there'll be any problems with having a conversation with getting that tree. I'm quite confident.
I say no.
I guess one more thing, okay?
I would just say I have contacted them. They have just come out and said no, they're not touching it. Not touching it. I told them it's coming down. It's coming down. You see the lean on it. I got pictures if you want to see it. It's coming down, but they won't do anything about it.
Well, the township will keep an eye on it and we'll see what we can do about it. Okay? All right,
Right?
anyone else have comments they'd like to make? Speaking against? Okay, if you would please go back to your chair and let the next gentleman come up.
When we're done with this, can we just leave it where it's stay?
You are welcome to go if you wish, or you can
No, I
stay,
didn't- I
whatever you
didn't
want to do.
Stay for a little.
Yeah.
Thank you. I just didn't know.
Yeah, no, it's entirely up to you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Tony Douglas. I live at 26 Mill Street. You're looking at this picture here, my property there's some cedar trees and then there's 3 other trees next to that. That would be my backyard. I'm kind of concerned about the distance to the property line the building would be. With the 1.5 to the 8.2, is that a planting strip or is that the distance the building is from the property line?
Through the mayor, if I could answer that, it is the planting strip. So it's not the distance from the building to the property boundary,
Okay.
it's the planting strip. So the idea of the planting strip is if they provide 1.5 meters, you can get trees and shrubs and bushes that can survive in 1.5 meters. And that's why the width is 1.5 meters.
Okay.
The intent is to shield you from the development, existing residential neighbors from the development. And a fence, in my opinion, my planning opinion, would meet the planting strip requirements. So if the fence is larger than what's required through the planting strip at maturity, which is 1.75 meters, you get a solid board fence, which we would have as a requirement through the site plan agreement, and it's actually included as a condition. That's going to give you the same security that the planting strip would. If you built that planting strip at 1.5 meters, the fence does the same thing.
Okay, so at 1.3 meters, that's your planting strip, then how much further from the property line would the building be? Does that get added on another 4 feet or like 1 meter? Or is it literally break down to 1.3 meters?
Through the mayor, they're not requesting any sort of a setback requirement from the building from that side
Okay.
lot line. They're able to meet the requirements of the zoning with the exception of the side yard requirement, which I believe is on the east side property line. I can get you the dimensions. I just have to pull them up from the sketch that they provided, but they don't need relief for that as part of the minor variance tonight. The relief that you see there isn't for a building, it's just for the planting strip
Mm-hmm.
and for the
Okay.
size of the units.
And then the unit size, shrinking it, is it to add more units? Is that the sole purpose of that? Or is it just, is like the building plan not finalized that you need to be changing things right now to like add? Like out of 55 square meters, 600 square feet down to 47 square meters is 500 square feet. Like, is that to add 3 more units? Is that what the idea is there?
Through the mayor, the applicant would probably be better able to answer about the difference between the 55 meters and what's being proposed and how many units they can get in. But then what it is they did their detailed design. They have determined that if they reduce the size of some of those units, this is how many units that they can fit on the property, which still meets the density requirements in the zoning bylaw and the official plan. And that's why they've made the request. The previous building in there, we did go back, I did take a look at previous building drawings. All of those units that were in there before were below that 55 square meter threshold. So none of the units that were there before met the requirement. Any of the units that are being proposed today would meet the requirement, but not all of them.
I just wanted to ask that because I know me and my neighbors probably don't want any more people that have to be back there, because like Mr. Champion was saying, it gets pretty wild back there some days. And lastly, if I could just ask for something, I don't know whether it's in your power or not, could there not be a fire pit on the property? Because I know before it was just 5 a.m. campfires, 3 a.m. campfires, and any time of year. And it's after a bit, it's tiring. I don't know on your plan where they fit a fire pit, but it would be nice to not have the possibility of 14 to 30 different people having a campfire in the backyard anytime they want. That's all.
You can answer that, or is it possible?
I think certainly, yeah, the footprint of the building has changed significantly, so the use of the property, I think, is better utilized. We can, again, can have conversations with the applicant about the outdoor space and what that looks like. Appreciate the
Sorry,
comments.
I wanted to ask one more question. Will the trees on my property be getting cut down? Because I know they're on my property and they create a very nice shield in the summer where I don't have to see stuff back there. It's kind of like living in a bush or in the country. I was just wondering, because it is close to the property line, I just want to make sure they weren't going to get damaged or uprooted, because they're not small. They're not really replaceable within, they're 30 plus years old.
Yeah, if they're on your property, there'd be no
They should be okay.
intention.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else who wishes to speak in opposition? Please come up to the desk, give us your name and address.
Good evening, Mayor and councilors. I had a lot wrote out, but he's answered some of the questions about a fence.
Can you give your name and your address?
Oh, sorry, it's Juanita. My name is Juanita Weber. I'm here with my husband, Justin Weber. We live at 24 Mill Street East, Milverton.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I had a bunch of things wrote out, but I guess with a fence there that has answered a lot of our questions, because really we didn't want to have people closer to us than need be. But I am a little concerned about the height of the fence, honestly. I'd like to see it a little higher. I would like to see it at least 6 feet, if not more. I mean, and I think you were saying it is a solid fence. I don't want to be able to have people walking through my backyard anymore, would be great. So if that can be completely a solid fence with no doorways or entranceways, that would be also good. Yeah.
Want to answer, Jeff?
Yeah, through the mayor. So what's being proposed is 1.8 meters, which is 6 feet.
It is.
Yeah, it's 6 feet, which
I
is
thought it was
higher than
only
what's
about 5.
required in the planting strip requirements, which means if they put shrubs or trees in, likely a shrub is probably the best way to complete a planting strip, but they could be lower than what the fence would be that's being proposed
Okay.
and still meet the zoning
Okay.
bylaw
I was
requirements.
trying to do the math in my head and was thinking it was only around 5 feet. So I was like, 5 feet, I can almost look over it. So,
Yeah.
okay, it's 6 feet. Do you have anything?
Okay, thank you. Anyone else who would like to speak in opposition? Seeing no one, is there anyone present who wishes to speak in support of the application? Does the applicant or the applicant's agent, you're the applicant, would you like to speak? This is your chance.
Thank you. I'm Corinne Maloney from Grinham Architect. I'm the applicant, and I just wanted to address some of the concerns that have been brought up today. I do want everyone to know that we are hearing those concerns and we'll do what we can to alleviate them through design. Some of the concerns may be outside of the minor variance requirements and they'll be addressed in site plan, but I just thought I'd go through the list quickly if that's okay.
Sure.
The tree, the leaning tree, the pine, as Jeff mentioned, there will be a site plan approval, there will be a landscape plan. In that approval process, an arborist will do an inventory of all trees, and some will have to come down because of, well, if it sounds like this one has to come down, so I'll leave it at that. But and that shouldn't be a problem to get that one done. The safety and privacy of the neighbors. Yeah, as we've mentioned, or Jeff's mentioned the fence.
Do you want to move the microphone just a
Oh,
little
sorry.
closer to it? I think people behind are struggling to hear.
Yeah, okay, sorry. Jeff has mentioned the fence and there would be a landscape in front of that. The board fence will be solid. We often design it so that you can't slip anything under it either, which is usually helpful with kids in the neighborhood. So, not that they're slipping things, they might be slipping things under, but just for safety purposes. We have talked with the client about lighting and security cameras, that kind of thing, so that can monitor what is going on there. The size of the units, all of the units do meet building code requirements. Most of the units will be occupied by one resident. There are a couple 2-bedroom units, which I believe meet the 55 square meter requirement, but the 1-bedrooms are definitely all smaller. There are some common areas like laundry, scooter storage, some a common room that when you add those spaces up, they get pretty close to giving a unit, like a square footage or square meter unit for that gets very close to the 55 square meters. What else was said? Sorry. The location of the building, it's hard to see on that drawing right now, but it is, sorry, hard to see here too. It's over 21 meters from the back property line to the back of the building. It's 9.2 meters from the, I'm going to say west side to the west property line, and 5.6 meters on the other side, on the east side, 7.1 meters to the front property line. And I think that's everything that I think Jeff addressed the other concerns.
Okay.
I might just stay if there's any other questions though.
Sure, you can just stay there. Are there any questions from the committee? Jeremy?
I have a question for Jeff. This building is just over 8 meters high. R3 zone, is that right? I think I read that somewhere. Yes, right on the drawing, it says 8.17. R3 does permit up to 10 meters, right? And is there an alley behind there right now, or is that been removed? Was there never an alley behind? Some of the old developments have an alleyway behind. And I was trying to find it on the GIS to see if there was an alley. I guess that would be on the south side of that property, but I couldn't find it.
Through the mayor, I think I can answer. I don't believe that there's any alley across the
No.
back of the property. I'm
Okay.
looking at the GIS mapping now. It doesn't show a separate parcel or anything back there. And yes, you are correct. It's 10 meters in height is the building permit.
Okay.
maximum building height.
Yeah, the question of the alley was more to Mr. Douglas and making sure those trees were not municipal property if there was an alleyway there. That's all. Thanks.
Okay, other questions? Andrew?
Thank you, Merrigan's. Site plan, is that a delegated authority now? So we won't see any of those details or be able to comment on that.
Yeah, site plan approval is delegated to my role as CEO, so yeah, I believe it's for review with staff, all concerned staff, including the CEO, planner, and then, yeah, the approval.
Okay, thank you. And a second question, if I may. I'm looking at the report and it's talking about, I don't think it's a Jeff question, but Planner Bannon question. So obviously growth pays for growth. Was it F1 here talks about water main, sanitary sewer, stormwater management, no cost in municipal, this is more units. So how will we recover that money? Because although we have capacity, it is going to dig into that capacity because it's a larger building. So when and how will we see that money come to us?
Through the mayor, I could try to speak to that. On this one, we are obviously going to be charging the connection fee cost, which will be a little bit different than a standard residential house. So that is one method. The updated bylaw that was passed there recently does kind of pick up that sentiment, if you will, where there is going to be some cost collected for new connections, simply to try to recover some dollars for capacity. Now, this might be a question I would ask, perhaps, Wes, is there going to be development charges for this build?
I think we'd have to review that. We could certainly get back on that question of development charges. I can't answer that right now, though.
Thank you.
Hey, other questions? Jeremy? Oh,
Yeah, just the final comment. Mr. Champion spoke about the property previously, and I have it's a difficult conversation to have, but I have been traversing. I live around the corner, and I have been from previous tenants yelled at with my children as we traversed down the street, and it is a difficult conversation to have because this type of development is needed. But I think, you know, those things like you mentioned, like security cameras and floodlighting and stuff, I think or lighting on the property and stuff would go a long way to, you know, making it more manageable for the neighbors and stuff. Because I like Mr. Champion have been approached by people that were living there before. Not saying that this is, you know, necessarily the same thing, but anything we can do to help to, you know, cultivate that spot and make it part of the, you know, the neighborhood rather than not part of the neighborhood, I guess, right? We want everybody to feel included and like we're all part of the same town here. So.
okay, you.
Just a quick question, Jeff. The gentleman sent in a letter. So if this was a public meeting instead of a public hearing, would the letter been part of the package that we would get? Because I'm sure in the past, a lot of times when there was developments, the comments from the neighbors usually came in with the package.
So, sorry, I also have a lost voice partly. The photos came in late this afternoon as part of that. And the letter was part of the chain email. So it came in after Jeff's report was completed. So we can circulate the letter. Jeff did outline the comments though that were received in the letter. If it, yeah, the timing is before the package is released. Yeah.
Other questions? Gary?
No questions, comments. I realize the need for social housing. We do need that. We have some here, 14 Mill Street. I hear the concerns of the residents. I have the same concerns. Our fire department has attended there many times, medical calls, fires. Again, I know we need the housing. I envision in 20, 30 years, and I hope not, that it ends up being the same building that the old one was. I hope not. We don't have Milverton. We don't have the transportation to help these folks. The services aren't here. We know where they are. They're in Stratford, in Northport. They're in the bigger centers. Gosh, I'm not in favor of this at all. I wish that the city, they would divide it up and sell it and make 3 lots out of it. I'm just being honest, and I know it's going to go through, but I wish all the success to them, because again, I said we need the social housing, but I hope these folks are screened properly, security cameras. Again, I hope they can do better than the last round. I know about what that building was. That's all my comments. Thank you.
Okay, other questions? If not, we do have a motion. The committee will now consider a motion regarding the application. The motion is that the Township of Perth East Committee of Adjustment approve application file MV 17-2025 submitted by Perth and Stratford Housing Corporation for lands described as Lot 137 Plan, Regular Plan 363, Milverton Ward, Township of Perth East, municipally known as 9 Fulton Street, as it relates to number 1, relief from section 14.2.10 to reduce the minimum floor area for an apartment dwelling unit from 55 meters squared to 47 meters squared, and number 2, relief from section 5.21 to reduce the minimum planting strip width from 1.5 meters to 0.82 meters along the rear property line, and from 1.5 meters to 1.3 meters along the west property line to facilitate the development of a 14-unit apartment building, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, that the required planting strip provided in accordance with section 5.21 of the zoning bylaw include a solid wood fence, minimum height of 1.8 meters, and number 2, the owners obtain the necessary building permit within 2 years of the approval of the minor variance. We have a mover and a seconder. Okay, moved by Hugh, second by Bob. Any more comments or questions, Jeremy?
Yeah, I think the reason for my question earlier, like we're seeing this because it's not conforming to the size of the rooms, when in fact, if we're concerned about the development, it could have come to us with a 3-story development with 5 more units in it and not actually come to council as well, probably. So it's coming to us because the reduction in those unit sizes and the planting buffer, I suppose. But you know, what really could have happened is a 3-story unit could have gone there with as many or more units without having to come to council for approval, because at the end of the day, it's already zoned as an R3 spot. So I think whether we agree with what the development is or not, I think this is probably the best use of the space as it currently sits in the current ownership of that property.
Okay, anyone else? All in favor? No, I'm sorry, you can't. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. I declare this public hearing closed. Okay, we're going to move on to reports. You're welcome to stay. If you want to leave, you're welcome to leave as well. We have nothing under planning. Under CAO, we have the planning service level agreement renewal. Mike?
There's room like the CAO.
Just give everyone a second to.
We managed 15 minutes.
Okay. Where'd Jeremy go? You want to shut the door, please, Jake, and we'll just keep carrying on? You want- Catch up.
Thanks, Mayor Rhonda. Yeah, the report is, I think, pretty straightforward. It relates to the extension of existing arrangements with the county planning. Tonight is a great example of complexity associated with planning applications. And Jeff has left the room, but I would speak from my own personal experience, 21 years in the municipal world. Jeff is a professional. He understands the role of planning. He understands sometimes puts him in a difficult position, even with committee and council. He understands that. He handles that well as a pro, and I appreciate that quite. What you and I don't always agree too, but he understands. I'm quite satisfied with the direction that planning has taken in the last 3 years. Continue on with that exists. Questions of the voice agreement. That's how it's stated.
Okay, questions of the report? If not, we have a motion that Council of the Township of Perth East receive the report prepared by the Chief Administrative Officer dated December 16, 2025, entitled Planning Service Level Agreement Renewal, CAO-2025-16 for information. Moved by Jerry, second by Andrew. All in favor? Carried. Okay, we have nothing from the clerk. Finance, we have January to November year-to-date expenses and income. Paula?
Thank you, Mayor Agats. Before council tonight is the January to November 2025 year-to-date report. And similar in previous reports earlier in the year, the CAO treasurer and managers have reviewed and made comments where deemed necessary. The only item of significance to note in this report is similar to the previous reports, and that relates to the winter control line items. The heavy snowfall in January to March of 2025, and then the steady snowfall that we've been experiencing lately is causing these line items to be over budget. So we're trying to plan for that for year end. Other than that, there's nothing major to note for the rest of the budget, and the departments are in line with approximately 90% of their budgets spent to date. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Okay, thank you. Any questions of the report? Not, we have a motion that Council of the Township of Perth East receive the report prepared by the Manager of Financial Services - Treasurer dated December 16, 2025, entitled January - November 30th, 2025 year-to-date for information. Moved by Hughes, second by Bob. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, property tax adjustments, Paula?
Through you, Mayor. The 2025 property tax adjustments are before council tonight. These are the 2025 section 357 and 358 write-offs. They total $308,137.44. Of that, approximately $159,000 is Perth East related, $104,000 county related, and then $45,000 related to the education property tax. So this line item for 2025 is just under budget by approximately $16,000. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Okay, questions of the report? Seeing none, we have a motion that Council of the Township of Perth East receive the report entitled Property Tax Adjustments, FIN-2025-24, dated December 16, 2025, prepared by the Property Tax and Utility Clerk and the Manager of Financial Services / Treasurer for information, and that Council approve the tax adjustments listed in this report totaling $308,137.44 to be written off in accordance with Section 39.1 and 40 of the Assessment Act, Sections 357 and 358 of the Municipal Act as amended. Moved by Hugh, second by Jerry. All those in favor? Carried. Thanks, Paula. Now we move to Public Works, and the first one is a Public Works level of service policy. Jake?
Thanks, Mayor Iggett. My first report tonight covers an update, obviously, to the level of service policy. Last updated back in 2014, so it has been a while. Generally speaking, the majority of the content within the policy was pre-existing. However, there were some changes and updates relating to specific language in the policy. As part of the update, staff created 3 new sections within, including a roads general section, a stormwater collection section, and a waste management section. Previously, any reference to these sections would have been captured in the miscellaneous section, but the draft as presented has eliminated that section and distributed any content there across other sections of the policy where it's most appropriate. Attached, council will see in attachment 1, a clean draft of the updated policy. Attachment 2, not quite as clean as you will see, shows the original policy. I tried to show the changes where they were made. However, it was more challenging than I thought with parts moving from here to there, and it ended up looking more festive than I intended. But anyways, as for the changes in the policy, the first section I wanted to highlight for council is the winter maintained sidewalks. That's in section 2 of the new policy. Some of the sidewalks have been getting maintained in practice for several years that have not necessarily been captured in this policy. So those have been noted, and you will see the changes from the original. Now, there is one new section that I would like to touch on, and part of the reason for the update to the policy, and that is Cobalt Street North between Mill Street and the daycare there. This sidewalk was installed by the school board, and they've requested that the township maintain this section as they do not have specific equipment designed for sidewalk maintenance. So staff feel this one meets the criteria set out in the policy and would recommend council include this in this iteration of the policy. On the topic of sidewalks, there's a couple sections that staff have reviewed and don't necessarily feel meet that criteria. Those 2 segments are John Street between Main and William, and there's also a section of Fulton between Main and Pacific. Historically, segments designated for winter maintenance are to have included school routes, close to public facilities, business areas, sidewalks adjacent to MTO or county roads. These segments do not necessarily match up with the others, so staff would ask council to give consideration to removing these from the policy. And as written, the draft does include these segments, so it would have to be revised depending on how council would like to proceed. The next section, that I would like to highlight is section 10, being the waste management section. This one is new, as I've noted, but there's been some more detail added within this section, specifically the yard waste collection days hosted twice a year. We've also added some details around the Southeast Hope landfill operation, and some recycling changes that I will touch on later. There's also some specific details to disposal of certain materials that I'd like to chat on quickly. One of them would include wood. So management of wood at the landfill historically has been a little bit lax. There is definitions within the fees and charges schedule for waste wood and clean wood. There's been, I would say, minimal enforcement around that. So staff would like to start enforcing that more thoroughly. I think there's a lot of contractors that are dropping wood off for free. And we would like to start charging for that. I think we're seeing more wood than we've ever seen before. And that's shown by our wood grinding costs. We paid $10,800 in 2020. We're up to $20,200 in 2025. So significantly more wood is coming in. And one thing we hope to do is to start charging for wood, and we can divert more. The other thing I would like to touch on is stumps. I have included in the exclusions section of section 10 that we would not accept stumps at the landfill. What we're finding is they take up a lot of room and they're very, very costly to get rid of or grind. Stumps from 2025, we got a price, it was $10,400 just to grind those stumps. And as it is currently, they're dropped off for free. So looking to eliminate receiving those stumps, they can ultimately be ground in place. Lastly, I just wanted to touch on that there are a couple policies that I've incorporated into this that would eliminate some other public works specific policies. Those include the edge and brake sign policy, children at play signs, and the contaminated soil policy. Obviously a lot of content, but if there are any questions, I will do my best to answer those.
Okay, thank you. Questions of the report? You?
I noticed on the report on page 2.5, you talk about boulevards, and people are to maintain the boulevards in front of their house. And if that's our property, if there's any accident, any problem there, are you kind of covered for that?
In terms of liability in the boulevard, it is technically our property. I can't speak to the liability there. That's something I would have to get back to council on. It's a good question that I should know the answer to, so.
Okay, anyone else? Andrew?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, a couple of questions. Just from what you said there in your report verbally. So just Shakespeare sidewalks, are we thinking of removing some of those from the list on page, whatever it is, 187 or?
Through the mayor, no.
Okay.
In Shakespeare, no. There's two segments in Milverton that I've kind of identified, or staff generally have, that we don't see as fitting along with the others.
Okay.
But they're both in Milverton.
Okay, thank you. And the second question is, wood material at the landfill?
What was the question? Sorry.
We're thinking of making that a tonnage thing, or?
So as it is currently in the fees and charges, and really always has been, there's always been two sections, a clean wood and a waste wood section. More or less what I'm looking to highlight for council is that we would like to start enforcing the waste wood component of that. And you're talking painted wood, treated wood, stuff like
Construction
that.
material, those
Exactly.
drywall stuff. No, that's fair. Thank you.
Okay, other questions? Jerry?
Thanks, through the mayor. Thanks, Jake. Really good report. A pretty good read, along with all the festive colors. Obviously, when you add a sidewalk, everybody's happy. When you take a couple away, you get some calls. So without reading the page policy, it's 2 to 6. So removing John and Fulton. So the Fulton section is from Pacific to Maine. Is that the section you're getting removed from the main, or snow removal. And then Fulton is the entire thing from William to Maine.
Sorry, through the mayor. So John is just the one block for Main to William Street on the one side of the road. Yes. Fulton is the way that it's currently done and has been for years now is only one block of Fulton is being done, and that's from Main to Pacific.
Okay, that clarifies that, just in case I get some calls, whether it's traffic, foot traffic doesn't warrant it. Obviously, that's a big one. Okay, no, thanks. And just one thing while we're on the level of service, just kudos to Jake and his staff. Helped get rid of some white stuff prior to our local Christmas parade last Friday night. That helped around Wilford and Temperance. So kudos to your staff on that. Thanks, Jake.
Okay, other questions? Seeing none, we have a motion that council of the Township of Perth East receive the report prepared by the Manager of Public Works dated December 16, 2025, entitled Public Works Level of Service Policy Update, PUB-2025-29 for information. And further, that council approve policy PW-1.10.01, level of service policy for the Public Works Department. And further, that council give 3 readings to bylaw 61-2025, being a bylaw to authorize the level of service policy for the Public Works Department. And further, that council repel bylaw 52-2014. And further, that council repel the following Public Works specific policies. Public Works 1.04.02, road maintenance, engine brake signs, 1.04.03, road maintenance, children at play signs, 1.05.02, contaminated soil disposal policy, and 1.10.01, level of service policy. Need a mover and a seconder for that? Moved by Andrew, second by Hugh. I have one question. That does take out those sidewalk pieces, correct?
I was looking to comment. So as it is written, it does not, those 2 segments are there. So there would have to be a motion to remove those two segments if that's what council wishes.
Okay, so let's vote on this motion first, and if somebody wants to make another motion to do that, we'll do it that way. Is that okay? Well, we can do it that way too. Sometimes that messes things up, but we can do it. All right, Bob.
So the amendment would be to remove John Street from Main to William and remove Fulton Street from Main Street to City.
Okay, so you're moving the amendment. Do we have a seconder? Hugh? Comments, Jerry?
Through the mayor, that is included in the chart that's there.
Okay, Jeremy?
Yeah, through the mayor there. Yeah, there's 2 segments there, more or less across the road from one another. That is one of them, yes.
And that those 2 segments, they're also extremely, and all of the extremely narrow. That sidewalk is not blown up on it's been marked on the south side of Fulton Street. And not have to grab on the sidewalk. The sidewalk is the road.
Isn't part of the problem that the road is so narrow and then you just plow the road and it goes on the sidewalk and you plow the sidewalk and it puts it back on the road? Don't see that you're gonna gain anything. And there's a business along there who I would think.
Andrew?
Thank you, Mary. So the sidewalk's adjacent to the road, one of these ones we're talking about?
Through the mayor, both of them are
Okay,
nearly
so
direct.
if we leave those ones on, there's other ones we're gonna have to consider, like the one in front of Sprucedale School and the one in Sebastopol. They're both side roads and they both have conveying kids to school. So we're gonna leave those ones on. If they don't fit the policy, change the policy, but we can't have piecemeal all over the place. So I'm fine with leaving the other ones off. Maybe we can visit this again another day, but the amendment's on the floor. So I'm just saying it's gonna open up other exact same situations.
Right, by
Hey, anyone else?
So just
Jared?
for clarification to Councilor McAlpine, we currently do not do in front of Sprucedale, or we do? Sorry.
You can answer. I assumed the whole idea was to get the kids to school with the sidewalk plow, if I'm not mistaken. So I think at this point, it need a policy change or throw everything on there. That's because arguably, especially when it's Sebastopol, that's where they get picked up on the school bus, right? So I'm not saying we need to do that tonight, but I'm just saying that it's a bigger picture than just this. I think we should follow the policy maybe tonight and look at revisiting policy possibly. With regards to sidewalks.
Right now, we're talking about the amendment. Yep. Anyone else want to comment on the amendment before we vote on the amendment? Right. Yep.
Through the mayor, I believe we only maintain the north side.
Is the other side of John Street already plowed? The south side?
I don't know. Part of that. I think the sidewalk doesn't start.
Through the mayor, there is a sidewalk through there. It generally speaking gets plowed by the grocery store, and that was part of the reason for trying to remove this section, for that particular section.
Okay, other questions on the amendment? Oh, we need a seconder, sorry. Oof, there. We need a second. We have Bob moved it. Did anyone second it? Andrew? Did you? I don't know. Okay, so the amendment to the motion reads that we remove John Street from Mill Street to William. We remove Fulton Street from Main Street to Pacific. Winter sidewalk removal from level of service policy. Sure. That right? Right, Main Street North to William Street. Main Street North. So it's Main Street North to William. And Fulton is Main Street North to Pacific.
Specific about which side.
Through the mayor, it does specify in that chart which side of the road we do. It is the north on both segments.
Hey, Hugh, question?
Yeah, just a quick question. If, in terms of this is a problem, would it be a problem to back the council, but change the level of service?
Yeah, through the mayor, we can certainly add these back in. One thing I really didn't touch on, I did in the actual written report, was that I've added a section to the end showing each section within the policy showing a revision history. We can bring back individual sections of this policy to try to make changes more quickly.
Jerry?
Yeah, just a comment because of all the reasons mentioned. I can't support removing John and Fulton from our.
Anyone else? I have a quick question just for my clarification. What was the rationale of removing them?
Rationale was basically the goal of the policy as it was written initially was that it's for school routes, it's for county roads, it's for MTO roads and downtown businesses. To me, none of this really fits that.
And they don't meet the criteria of any of them, correct? So we'd have to change the policy to keep them.
Not necessarily. That's the goal of the policy. I don't think it has to absolutely meet the definition, this table, so to speak.
Okay, any more questions? I had all the hard ones tonight. Wow. Okay, all in favor of the amendment? Carried. Okay, so now the amendment with the main motion. The main motion was, I'm not reading it all again, I can't. The main motion was to receive the report and we update the policy. We approve it. We give 3 readings to the bylaw and we repel. There was 4 different things: engine brake signs, children at play, contaminated soil, and level of service. We take them out and we add the amendment about removing those 2 streets from the sidewalk. Okay, all those in favor of all that? Opposed? Carried. Okay. The boundary road agreement for Road 112. Jake?
Hey, thanks, Ian Merrick. This one should be fairly brief. It is a boundary road agreement renewal with Perth South for Road 112 between Perth Line 26 and Perth Oxford Road. It's about 3 kilometers in length and it expires the end of this year. This agreement is a little bit unique in that the maintenance responsibilities alternate back and forth year after year. But that's how it's been operated for many years. And that's the way it's proposed again here for another 10. If there's any questions, I'll try to answer those.
Okay, questions of the report? Excuse me. We have a motion that Council of Township of Perth East receive the report entitled Road 112, Boundary Road Agreement with the Township of Perth South, PUB-2025-30, dated December 16, 2025, prepared by the Manager of Public Works for information, and further that Council enter into a boundary road agreement with the Township of Perth South for Road 112 between Perth Line 26 and Perth Oxford Road by giving 3 readings to bylaw 62-2025, being a bylaw to enter into the agreement. Need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Bob, second by Jerry. All in favor? Carry. excuse me, Road 150 boundary agreement. Jake?
Thanks. This one with West Perth. This boundary road is Road 150. Extends from line 34 or Highway 8 all the way out to Perth line 55. It's about 16 and change kilometers. It also expires the end of this year. This one, each municipality maintains a segment with Perth East maintaining between Perth lines 44 and 55 and West Perth maintaining the other section. Again, it's a term of 10 years. Any questions? I'll try to answer those.
Questions of the report? You.
Not necessarily a question in the report. I just wondered if Mayor Dean Tchaikovsky of West Perth had sent emails about line 39 and Road 150 and stop signs or something. Just to be able to get that.
Yeah, through the mayor, I was made aware of those communications. I have also had a conversation with the director over at West Perth. So that intersection does fall under their jurisdiction. It's a little bit unique with these boundary agreements, but that is their segment. So they would ultimately pass a bylaw if there were stop signs installed. We, however, would be on the hook for 50% of that cost. So that's how that works. If it were our section, it would be the same idea.
Okay, we have a motion that Council of the Township of Perth East received a report entitled Road 150 Boundary Road Agreement with the Municipality of West Perth, PUB-2025-31, dated December 16, 2025, prepared by the Manager of Public Works for information, and further that Council enter into a boundary road agreement with the Municipality of West Perth for Road 150 between Highway 8, Line 34, and Perth Line 55, by giving 3 readings to bylaw 63-2025, being a bylaw to enter into the agreement. I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Hugh, second by Amanda. All in favor? Carried. Okay, one more. Jake, Blue Box Program.
Hey, thanks again. This one I can't promise will be as quick. Last one tonight covers, or will attempt to cover anyways, the Blue Box regulation changes set out by the province. This regulation itself has seemingly been ever evolving with amendments as recently as this September. Major changes that were set out by the province included a transition to what's called a full extended producer responsibility model. And this transition occurred between July 31st, 2023 and the end of this year. What this model sets out is basically that the producers of various blue box materials, your papers, plastics, metals, glass, they are based on this regulation. They're fully responsible financially and practically for the collection and for the recovery of all of this residential recycling. So prior to this, the municipalities and the producers really split that cost 50-50. We here at the township transitioned in April of 2024, along with all the other Blue Water Recycling Association members. So we, at that point, we really realized a savings of about 50% on our curbside collection program, which is certainly a positive. So under this model, this includes all residential properties, but this producer responsibility does not apply to properties designated as ICI or institutional, commercial, or industrial. So during what was termed the transition period, the producers were allowed to continue to collect from ICI properties or non-eligible sources, the way it's described in the regulation. So this basically allowed recycling from those properties to be collected in unison with the residential recycling. BRA obviously carried out that program for us, and there was a cost to the township for that, which worked out to be about 10% of the recycling costs. But as of January 1st, the producer responsible organizations, they will not allow this blended collection of eligible and ineligible sources. So what this really means is there's going to have to be a separate collection program for those particular properties. Initially, it was thought that this collection would kind of continue as it had, but attachment 1 you'll see appended to the report from the Minister of Environment, Conservation and Parks, Todd McCarthy, the PROs or producer responsibility organizations. They've made the decision not to continue this collection. Initially, the regulation required that these PROs would have to provide municipalities with an offer continuing that collection, but as you'll see in the correspondence, there's no offer forthcoming. So shortly after that, we received some follow-up correspondence from BRA. You'll see that in attachment 2. So BRA has committed to the continuation of this collection of ICI blue box materials. However, it will have to be under a separate collection program. So in 2026, apologies, I've lost my spot here. So yeah, there's going to be an independent collection program for these properties. Outlined again in attachment 2, you'll see there are some changes required to proceed with this different collection, and that would be all those properties that are going to ICI will have red lids installed on the wheelie bins. That's to occur before the end of the year. And BRA is going to be coming around to all these properties to carry that out. So the list I got from Blue Water, that includes about 250 properties, so it is fairly substantial. All of these properties are also going to get an updated collection schedule along with their new lid. So in 2026, BRA is going to actually absorb this cost of the additional service. Given the timelines here, there was not a lot of time to make decisions. So they're going to eat that cost in 26, but it is certainly anticipated that's not going to extend beyond 2026. So the recommendation I've proposed for council is that I bring a report back in 2026 prior to the 27 budget prep, outlining the costs of what this is going to mean for us, and take a look at potential cost recovery measures should council wish to go that route rather. So as part of the regulation changes, and there were several, they have set out a unified list of accepted blue box materials, and that will apply province-wide. So this does expand the list of materials accepted that are currently collected, which is definitely a positive, and there's hope to province-wide this will divert waste from landfills. You'll see that new list in attachment 3. However, the ICI properties will fall under the existing accepted recyclables list, which you'll see in attachment 4. So it's to be expected there might be some confusion here initially, but there is to be conversations between Blue Water and each of those property owners before the end of the year. Lastly, there were several other changes laid out that I tried to touch on in the report. That unfortunately the province did draw back on a few things, but in terms of impact on the residents, I tried to cover that with my verbal here. Again, yeah, this one there was a lot of material to cover, but I'll try to answer any questions council might have.
Okay, thanks, Jake. Questions of the report? Andrew?
I think my voice is starting to go too, but hopefully it'll, maybe everybody wants it to stop. I don't know, but hopefully it survives until Christmas. So was there any consultation about this process? It sounded like it started about a year ago with the province.
Through the mayor, this has been ongoing for years. I think it started back in 2022.
Has there been any meaningful consultation? I'm sorry. I guess what I'm getting at is that I see, I think it's, what is it, page 292, second last paragraph above budgetary impact, definitely some positives possible, but I'm thinking maybe a letter so our provincial partners know where we stand, maybe in order to the appropriate entities, just to, because, you know, they like information, they want to know what we think. So I'm going to propose with whatever motion we put with this, that we put a letter to our partners at the province and just kind of let them know the details. We may be unique, we may not be, and maybe it'll grab some traction, because obviously we're probably not the only ones struggling with this. And my only comment.
So through the mayor, this is occurring at every municipality across the province. I know there's a lot of feedback already being provided to the province, but yeah, certainly not to suggest we shouldn't do that, but just my 2 cents.
Okay, other questions? Ashley's adding. There are red lids already out there. I saw them the other day, and I wondered why they were a different color than blue. I thought maybe they broke them and they just give a new red one. Now I know that why they have a red lid, but it does make it confusing. You're correct. Like, I was told about this a few years ago, and the gentleman that said to me, "Oh, you're going to be excited about this," and I thought, "How's that going to work?" Here we are, and it's not as smooth as it maybe could have been or should be. Or the problem is they don't realize that they think the service comes through us, which it kind of does, but it really doesn't. Right? It comes through comes through Blue Water. They provide the service for us. Is that correct? Yeah.
Through you, Mayor, just a quick response to that. I guess in theory, they are now on the recycling side. Blue Water is operating on behalf of the producers.
Okay, so we have a motion that Council of Township of Perth East received a report entitled Blue Box Program Changes, PUB-2025-32, dated December 16, 2025, prepared by the Manager of Public Works for information, and further that Council directs staff to prepare a report prior to the 2027 budget process outlining detailed costs related to the provision of industrial, commercial, and institutional recycling services, including potential cost recovery alternatives, and further that Council directs staff to prepare correspondence to the province addressing concerns related to the cost increases to ICI recycling services, industrial, commercial, and institutional services. Okay. Need a mover and a seconder for that. Moved by Andrew, second by Hugh. All in favor? Carried. Thanks, Jake. Okay, we're moving. Oh, Bob.
So this is great information to have. I know it's been on social media, but it'd be really nice to blast it out in, I guess, newsletter, text time, just to say what is now new to be recycled, or in some cases, some users not to be recycled. I think it's a little confusing that recycle aerosols, but commercial users can't. Anyway, I think it's important to get this out there. A lot of people aren't going to know, and I'm not on social media like some people, so they don't see it. But I mean, make an attempt to promote this. Thank you.
Okay, yep, good. Okay, we're going to move to building bylaw enforcement, quarterly development report for August to December. Wes?
Thank you, Mayor Agates. So we have an early development report, realizing the fourth quarter is not finished. And also I notice we do understand the quarter doesn't go from August to December. But this is just so council can see some of what's happening with construction in Perth East. And one very notable project that didn't get in here is the Noon Industries building in Sebringville that I was out to today, and it's going well, and it's quite large. So if there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Questions of the report? It is great to see that we still have so much building going on, but some places don't. We have a motion that Council of the Township of Perth East receive the report prepared by the Manager of Building and Planning / Chief Building Official dated December 16, 2025, entitled Quarterly Development Report, August to December 2025, CBO-2025-16 for information. Moved by Amanda, second by Andrew. All in favor? Carried. Thanks, Wes. Now we're going to move to Parks Recreation, Municipal Alcohol Policy Review, and I'll look to
Thanks, Mayor Rhonda. Becky offers her regrets she's under the weather tonight, so I'm moving forward. If there are questions, I can try to address, but would most likely refer them to Becky. It is just an attempt to clean up the policy and modernize some current changes. No significant changes were brought forward, but more of a clean up.
Okay, any questions of the report? Seeing no questions, we do have a motion that the Council of the Township of Perth East receive the report prepared by the Manager of Parks, Recreation, and Community Services dated December 16, 2025, entitled Municipal Alcohol Policy Review, PRCS-2025-09 for information, and that Council adopts the recommended revisions to the policy. Mover and the seconder. Moved by Hugh, second by Bob. All in favor? Carried. Thanks, Mike. Okay, we're going to go nothing for fire. Now we have correspondence. We have 2 items for correspondence. First one is the Maitland Valley Construction Conservative Authority regarding proposed consolidation of the conservations areas. Any questions, comments? Jerry?
Through you, Mayor, I think we should support both of these. I'm not sure whether we go with the wording in the proposed resolution, but whether we send letters. And I notice we haven't received from the GRCA yet. I know it's been out there. It was approved at, I guess it was just last Friday's board meeting, but yeah, not sure what the council wishes, but we should support because the changes are proposed pretty, for lack of a better word, ridiculous. We all know we're here for conservation, but these changes are going to cost. Who's going to pay?
Hey, do you want to do them together? Or you want to do them separate? Do them separate? Okay. Andrew?
Quick question. Thank you, Mayor. Is this enforced? Like, is this legislation now, this amalgamation of all the? Is there?
No, it's not. It's not. So a couple things. The only thing that was announced, so there was a proposal on the ERO for consultation, which consultation is happening now. The only thing that is actually basically enforced is the new conservation agency that has been stood up. That is in force. The actual proposal in terms of the consolidation within the watersheds is being consulted on currently. And the goals, from what I understand, is to bring consistency across the province, because right now there is not. And so the agency is to oversee that. Obviously, so their services that they provide now would remain, but certainly the heads of these CAs, they will probably, like obviously there can't be, you know, a head, like there can't be it can't be a mic in every, you know what I mean? Like if you're, I think there's probably going to be some reorgs of some things. So I think people are confused and frustrated. But from my perspective, when I hear from farmers, and I know when I was actually getting out the vote during the election, I had someone who told me that they had a person from the Conservation Authority come out and give them a very hard time about their ditch and basically saying that they own their land. And I just, you know, I think with the mapping and consistency, I mean, I'm not going to be in support of what's being moved because I think there's something that needs to be done with the CAs to reel them in. There's no accountability. Every year they have levy increases. There's no accountability right now to deal with that. So I think the province is trying to reel them in. Whether the proposal is the right path forward, that's up to folks to decide. But no, there's no, the only legislation that's in force right now is the agency consultation is ongoing regarding the actual proposal of how they plan to consolidate the watersheds, is my understanding.
So if it's all right, Hugh went to a consultation Friday and he was going to report later, but maybe now would be the time to tell him what you learned. Microphone. Please.
There was 5 questions and there was a group of some 8 at each table. And it asked what we would like to see the reorganization look like and the boards and that kind of stuff. They really didn't give us a lot more detail. For me, the only thing that I worry about is for the area that we're in goes from Orangeville to the water, from Hamilton to Windsor. And the thing is, the boards that they're set up now, at least there's someone from Perth East on the board, Jerry's on the board of the Grand. And I think it would be that rural Ontario would get squeezed out again. Like we won't have a seat at the table because if you've got this big organization running everything, the 7 or 14 people in there are put on by the province. They're not put on by the municipalities, and there's 81 municipalities. So it's. I understand wanting to modernize and get permits and all that kind of stuff, but you're losing at least some local voices on board. And that's what, and I don't know how they're going to do the levy. Like I don't know how this big board, they can levy the lower level. So I'm not sure then how we're going to pay or who's going to pay. And that's always a big trick question too.
Other questions, comments? Okay, we'll try the first one. We have a motion. Okay, so the original motion was that the Council Township of Perth East receive the correspondence from Ed McGugan, Chair of the Maitland Valley Conservation Authority, regarding the proposed consolidation of conservative authorities for information. And then Jerry had asked and Council direct staff to prepare a letter of support. Okay, I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Jerry, second by Andrew. All one motion. Any more comments or questions?
Just who would be simple? Actually, just who would be simple, but just so that the conservation authorities, but
They're all listed at the end of that, with the upper, there's a maybe the upper Thames.
Okay, so you want to go to the province and okay. Anyone else comments? All those in favor? Opposed? Defeated. Okay, so you just want to receive it for information. Moved by Jeremy, second by Amanda. All in favor? Carried, Jeremy and Amanda. And then we have the Upper Thames one as well. Same thing. Receive for information, moved by Jeremy, second by Amanda. All in favor? Carried. Okay, we are down to council and committee reports. My meeting log came last month. Do we have any verbal reports of any of the boards or committees that people sit on? Jeremy? Yeah,
What is going on from different people that were there, but
I thought it went very well. So they did it in two segments. They had first people could get up and ask questions, and the questions. Well, I guess backing up a couple steps. They did the presentation again, like Tyler, Marvin, and Daryl, the three people that came here. They gave their presentation, and then they let the audience get up and ask questions. And I think there was like 21, 22 people. Sometimes it was the same person. You had a number and you could go ask one question, you go get another number and ask. And they had some great questions. And those three on the panel, they answered all the questions that people gave. And then they had a part for comments. And there must have been close to 18 or 20 people get up again and things that they wanted taken out, put in. You know, one of them was they wanted the provincial standards for the what? The woodlot. Sorry, yeah, I lost my train of thought for the woodlot, and different things like that. And then there was 8 out of 10 of us from county council there taking notes. Staff were taking notes, and now it's supposed to come back to county council in early January with the comments that they're made, and then county council will decide where it's going to go from there. It was a good night. It was a stormy night. Crazy farmers still come out, which was great. I was one of them because when I was driving back, I really wondered if I should have been going at times. But anyway, it was nice to see so many people come. There are a lot of people that are concerned, and I did think it went very well, and see how the next steps go. Okay, anyone else have anything? Jerry?
Yeah, so through Mayor, the OPP detachment meeting, our meeting was last December 10th. And we've been going over this last couple of months with our mobile crisis response unit. You know, obviously we'd like to have some more funding, and lo and behold, we did get delegation to go to Roma, represent and to delegate. So that was accepted. But then lo and behold, the next day they announced that more funding, so almost $270,000 of funding for the MSRIP program. So I'm not sure if we're going to be bumped for our delegation or we're just going to go and say thank you, but so that's from the OPP board.
Okay, we're back. So, Council Township of Perth East rise from closed session, reconvene to regular session at 10:01 p.m. Moved by Amanda, second by Hugh. All in favor? Carried. Oh my gosh. Council, closed meeting was held and only the closed session items identified were discussed in closed session. Moved by Jeremy, second by Jerry. All in favor? Carried. The minutes of November 4, 2025, closed session meeting be approved. Andrews, second by Bob. All in favor? Carried. That bylaw 65-2025 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council of the Township of Perth East at its regular meeting held on December 16, 2025. Be read a first, second, and third time. Moved by Amanda, second by Hugh. All in favor? Carried. And the last motion of the night as we adjourn at 10:06 p.m. Moved by Amanda, second by Hugh. All in favor? Carried. Thanks, everyone. Merry Christmas.